Welcome to the Lessons from Sports podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Partello, and actually happy to be back home in San Diego for this week's Open. And this conversation is unlike any conversation I've had to this point on the podcast. Each week, each episode, I sit down with different people in and around the world of sports. And this conversation is a little bit different because Ted Katsiroubas isn't in the world of sports. We did interact in our careers early on in the radio business. Teddy eventually came and worked in sports radio with me, and then we became business partners with our friend Brad and started a promotional marketing company in our early 20s. But this conversation to me is one that I was really excited to have because Ted had to make a decision whether he wanted to step away from what he thought was his dream career and go into his family business, a multi-generation family business that he had long put off, saying he didn't want to be a part of. And we dive into the thought process, what went into that, and what he and his sister have been able to do as the next generation of owners of this incredible business in the New England area. So if you are at a crossroads as to what to do next, or part of a family business, or in a family that owns a business, all of those have a kid that may or may not want to take over your family business, or any of those crossroads in our lives, this conversation with Ted Katsiroubas is an amazing, enlightening exposure into what he went through, the experiences that he took from all of it, and the highs and lows of it as well. Absolutely love my guy, Ted Katsiroubas, and I'm so excited that you get to experience a little bit of just the amazing perspective and just joy that Teddy brings to the world. So enjoy this conversation with my friend Ted and I. All right, buddy, we're going to do this thing. I love it. I'm excited. We have, this guy and I have been friends for, oh my God, too long, Teddy. It's been like 20 something years at this point. And, way I like to start is I can intro you all day long, but it's way better for you to kind of tell your cuento. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're doing today?
All right. My name is Ted Katsiroubas. I am the CEO of Katsiroubas Bros in Boston. We're a fourth generation food service distributor. Definitely specialize in the produce realm, run the company with my sister and I. Also have a wonderful wife, Jill, and two kids, 13-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter, which is crazy to say out loud. Also one of the co-founders of Morrissey Market, which is a startup that we founded throughout the course of the pandemic that I'm sure we'll be chatting about throughout time. But that's me.
Yeah, and you missed a sort of chapter of your career because you didn't just go, because it's one of my favorite parts of your story, honestly. It is because, I know we'll at some point talk about your dad, but it honestly is like one of my greatest dad lessons that I teach people is that fourth generation family business, but you didn't go into it immediately.
Nope, I did not. I really was going down the complete opposite path, and it was very much promoted by my dad to not feel the burden or the expectation of coming into the family business. So I had grown up being just a real fan of radio and the entire medium of radio and just the entertainment world always fascinated me. Obviously music would be, I would say, arguably my first love. And then the other parallel universe that I was always living in was the sports world. So those two things, from a live event standpoint, I've been incredibly fortunate and spend a ton of time at different sport events, but also different concerts. So yeah, radio is where we first met. And I thought that's where I was going, and I was on that path. I went to Northeastern, which was a huge, it just gave me an opportunity to do what I wanted to do. And it wasn't to go to class all the time. It was kind of a placeholder to get a degree, but Northeastern really drew me in by the opportunity to start working. And that's in radio that I started.
Yeah, you and I were similar in the fact that we just like to work. Like we're just
Yeah.
workers and like so yeah, I mean, Teddy was producing the morning show. I mean, the number one morning show in Boston, Maddie in the
Yeah.
morning for Maddie was on the air for a very long time and you produced that show for I mean your entire college career and beyond. And I joined Kiss 108 as an intern and you were the producer and I used to drive Ted to appearances, and Teddy and I would go and hang out at these bars and get, he would get paid way more than I did, but we would have a blast and pretty wild. And then you and I actually with our buddy Brad actually started. I think it was your first startup too, but definitely
Yeah.
mine. With impact marketing back when we were, 23 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, with our first startup. So amazing, when you and I joke and chat and Brad, the three of us start this company. And from where we've all gone, I mean, Brad's your, CEO and one of your co-founders at Morrissey Market.
Mhm.
But this is after Brad went and we're going to have Brad on the podcast too, but Brad
Yeah.
went and absolutely crushed it with an idea that he had with freight farms. And
Yeah.
you made the decision. I remember the call you came
Mhm.
in. Can you just talk to me a little, tell that story of like the moment that you were like, you know what, it's time.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think that, what you were alluded to with my dad, with the perspective that he gave me was to go out and have my eyes wide open and be able to go out and just not feel like you couldn't do something. Like that just wasn't in my brain. It was like, go for it. So even as you're saying the story of me getting propelled into the position of being the producer of the morning show, even I know I did it. I remember that. I still can't believe it happened. I still sit back and I'm like, how the heck did, and it really was the two people was with, my first boss. And I think the best value I got out of it was learning how to interact and to be a good coworker and employee. And that was the first thing that I really remember Billy Costa um, really teaching me how to do. He was pretty buttoned up with, like, he's like, do this, this works. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. And it was very, very formulaic to him. So it was like, even with DJ, he's like, you want to make money? I was like, yeah, I'd like to make money, because it was just an internship. So he's like, go buy DJing equipment, go get a book of CDs, and I'll help you make money. I was like, okay. So I went and did exactly that. And then I think I also kind of hung around the rim enough that things started to open itself up, and then ultimately got on Maddie's radar, and he gave me the shot that I can't honestly really totally wrap my head around. His
Mm-hmm.
confidence. I had never touched the board. I had not been trained, and he said, "You're the guy." And then I'm thrusted in there, and then and it's from there. I graduated from college. I would say made the like. I'm not somebody who lives life, and I feel like I don't have regrets, honestly. That how I handled that situation and going leaving Kiss when I did, I don't love. It's part of the story. But then graduated from college. You were already over at Entercom, so I wasn't doing much.
Yeah.
So kept on the radio train there. Kept working there. Liked what I was doing there in the marketing side, so that parlayed into what impact marketing was. And then from that point, met my wife in January of 2005. Around that time, my sister went into the family business. Those two things really started to change my perspective on how I thought about the family business. There was a lot of changes that had happened at the company. Our warehouse was in South Boston, started in the late 80s. I was around a lot of stuff as a kid that was not very kid friendly. And so it wasn't exactly something, I would dream of being in the radio. I would have nightmares about the Bros business. It was like, it's the way it was. Like, I was like, I'm not doing that. It was like
Yeah.
crazy what I would see back in the day. But then once my sister got into the business, which she always loves to remind people that she got there first, she is the younger sibling. like I said, the business had started to become um, more of a. It's not going to sound right, but it was more of a real company. It wasn't just fly by the seat of the pants. It was starting to have um, some real structure behind it and stability behind it that I was drawn to, and I saw the relationship that my dad and sister had started to really form, and I didn't like it because I didn't have the same one with him. So I saw their little like connection getting deeper, and conversations kind of started to feel like, hey, what are you guys talking about? Oh, you're not here, so it doesn't pertain to you. So
Wow.
I went full bore into the family business January 2006.
That's amazing. 2000. Wow. It's you coming up on 18 years. So it's over
Yeah.
18 years now.
Yep.
And the growth of Katsiroubas through, I know you didn't start at the top. You and your sister were not sitting where you sit today when you
No.
started, but the growth of the organization, I think, is just incredible and something you guys should both be proud of. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you can share, but from where it was to where it is today is an amazing business case study.
Yeah, no, it is. And family businesses are definitely unique in the world of business. It is, um, it's hard to explain all the differences there are, but they're real. There are emotions that run through the fabric of this company in ways that you don't typically get from a corporate structure. Just in terms of like a lot of the people that I've worked with have seen me do just about everything here. It's not many things at this company that I haven't done. And then when I look back, this wasn't, my dad didn't have like a full plan per se, but there was no coincidence that by the end of the first year of being here, I had worked literally every hour of the day at the company. So I'd already covered all the different shifts because we were running 24/7. So I had done everything from driving a truck to loading a truck to managing the night crew to doing buying to going out doing sales. So it's just, that's what you do in a family business. It's, you say, somebody throws you the keys and you figure out how to get it done. So
Yeah.
what I try to do.
I had the unique perspective of being your friend, and then you guys brought Quento in to work on the Morrissey project when it
Yeah.
first launched and flying out. And I had never actually been to the Katsiroubas facilities and getting there at 4 o'clock. We would get there for shoots at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you'd already been there for a while. And like, what time does your day start?
I'm a slacker now. It's not as early, so
Okay.
I'm gonna say it. I'm not gonna lie. It definitely has pushed back. But like what's over my shoulder here, and this is what's very important to me, is that when we moved facilities in April of 2017, and I could have cared less about a lot of things that we're doing. I was just like, just get us in here, like put a wall there, put desks there. But I did ask for a window to go into the warehouse. So that's the warehouse. And that is where no matter what, I'll always be most comfortable and feel most alive in there. And I know that sounds kind of crazy because that's, it's 30 something degrees and
It is.
stuff's flying, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is my favorite place to be.
Our first time there was a giant snowstorm, and it
Yep.
was colder in the warehouse than it was outside in the snowstorm.
Yeah.
And even though I grew up there, I have definitely shifted to being a San Diego guy. And
Yeah.
it was, my whole staff we were freezing. We had to wear winter gear for the whole shoot. It was amazing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for you and I know the journey has been wild. It's, even, we always, the three of us, I always include Brad in our conversation.
Yeah.
We should have just had Brad on this episode, but I want to give each of you your own. It's like from the, we had the same love of radio and entertainment and sports, and then to where it all took us is completely different. I think that's one of the things that I often try to tell people is that it's okay that the initial love that you have may evolve, and life changes, right? Major life changes, right? Like I always tell managers and like leadership people, keep an eye on your employees when they're going through these life changes, is when you really want to have like the pulse of where their heads at, and make sure you're checking in with them. You said it, right? You met your future wife. You're okay. What am I going to do? Am I still going to be making $9 an hour slinging t-shirts, right? Like, am I gonna grow this other company into this amazing thing, which we were doing at the time? What am I gonna do? And then you start to have those real conversations. I went through the same thing. I was working at the radio station DJing, met my wife, we were about to have kids, and I'm like, I don't want to be going out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night to make a couple $100 to come home and be tired on Saturday morning with my kids. Like, what? It's time for a pivot, you know? I think that's a big one.
Yeah, I think what you definitely witnessed in the years that we were first getting to know each other was me really getting used to being comfortable in insanely uncomfortable situations. So for me, part of the story of the van that's I think my favorite part of it was that, yes, I'm sorry, I was making more money doing these promotions, but like I had to work on the mic, and I hated the idea of, and that's how Brad and I also started doing a lot of stuff together, because it's like I would take care of the music and he would do the mic. So it was like, you do that. I don't want to do that. and similar to you, that you'd be driving and I'd be miserable saying, I don't want to talk on the mic. I don't want to do this. I can't believe that this is like, and you're like, well, can I do it? Can I talk on the mic? And
I love like, a microphone.
Yeah, you're like, I love. So I think that's where, you know, I think that was really that time. And then for you, I think it was really like you had that, you were already comfortable in that situation, but I would say that your acclimation to being comfortable in uncomfortable situations was more of like, I mean, you were some heavy hitters in the early WEI days. So that I would have surmised that would have been your uncomfortable area of like,
no doubt,
being in the room with some of those big hitters and being a kid at the time and trying to be able to hang with that. So I think those years, both of us were doing a lot of that work on ourselves to being able to be in those situations.
I tell people all the time, the radio industry was the greatest blessing in my 20s. It was an industry that allowed inexperienced people to take on amazing, right? You got in front of the board because talented people could see talent and say, I'm going to give you a shot. And radio was great for that. I mean, I was overseeing 25 people at 23 years old. I had no right doing that. I had no college education. Like, I was the only one on the whole staff that didn't have a college degree, and I was in charge. And but again, that moment in time propelled the rest of my career, because at that point I took that time to learn and really get dirty. And, you know, I would be remiss not to mention, as you mentioned, Billy Costa and Maddie, that Joe Public, Joe Mazzy was for me, and Artie, the one man party, right? Artie, those are two guys, because I was on a different shift than you. I didn't have mornings. Those two guys set me up, and Artie going to Joe and saying, you got to meet this kid. He's different. And next thing you know, I'm working on the History team. And that's how I met you and Brad, and the rest is history. But I think now that we're older, which is scary to say, it's kind of on us. That's why I started this project, was because I feel like it's on us to, you know, we went through that stuff. Like, we went through those weird times, and it helped us as we learned and navigated those moments. It set us up when we got into our 30s and 40s to be like, oh, okay, I got this. I can, you know, you've had some very uncomfortable situations as, you know, now running a massive company. You got to be comfortable with uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I like this. And it is something that I really do take seriously in my now advanced age of really, like, I do feel like there were a lot of people that paid it forward for me, and I really try to do the same for others who are coming up. It's honestly, at this point, probably one of my most fulfilling things that I get to do is to see people come through the ranks, and those stories here are genuinely some of our favorite stories at the company.
100%. Yeah, no, I'm right there. I think we're very similar in those things. So the next sort of chunk we dive into is lesson from sports. And one of my favorite parts when I dreamt up this project was, it wasn't just about, sure, I've been around athletes, I've been around front office people, but lessons from sports come from like if you've even played a sport as a kid, you might take
Yeah.
something, coaching your kids sports teaches me
Yeah.
things, and so as we dive in, like what's something for you as you've gone into business and found success and incredible happiness? Like I know we talk and text all the time, like we're both just happy people. Like
Yeah.
what's that lesson from sports for you that's made a huge difference in your life?
I mean, that was the one thing that when we were texting back and forth getting ready for this, that you had said that that's one of the things to think about. And at first I was like, it took me a second. And at first I was like, oh, which way? I was like, where am I going to pull? And then when I sat back, I was like, oh my God, sports is ridiculously swerves throughout my
Mhm.
entire life in so many different ways. And I think that at this point, um, I'm about to make a self-deprecating joke about like I was a pretty good teammate, but I didn't actually play sports. Like I was a good hang as a kid growing up, but I was pretty round.
Same.
So I really didn't get on the field. I still think I was a pretty good teammate. I was very supportive, but my uniforms were always very clean. Um, but now at this point, as the CEO of the company, you are you are the coach, and you are I'll be driving, listening to sports talk radio at this point, and some of the parallels that I hear from different organizations and what I perceive to be some of my realities are eerily similar and amazingly common. And just as you're starting to develop talent and as people are going through different phases of their career, the the parallels to my everyday life in sports is extensive. um, I don't know if I actually did this consciously or subconsciously, but I was going over something with one of my buyers the other day, which I am expecting Anthony to be watching this. So yes, Anthony, I'm talking about you. And we were just talking about how he can, keep on advancing his knowledge of the company. And I started talking about shooting free throws. And I was like, treat this time like you're at work, you're practicing right now. Sit down, and this time is what I would equate to a basketball player just shooting free throws. Like just start running these reports this way, start
Mhm.
flipping them this way, and it's just like that. It's just like, you know, whatever that would equate to on from an athlete standpoint, it's like work on your slap shots. That's say like everyone you can make, but it's the same thing of like hitting the heavy bag, like all these things you say, all these phrases that coaches do. And yeah, and I have gotten to really enjoy. I have started coaching my son in flag football, which has been really cool because I think that at that age, it is the best thing I think I can do for the kids is just to focus on the teamwork aspect. Like, who cares if you have one of your kids on the team that can just light up the field. If he's not a good teammate, it's not going to help him. You can't promote that. So it's for when I'm coaching at this point, 100% my focus is on how everybody is as a teammate to each other.
Yeah, it's an incredible lesson. And you're exactly right. I was the same way, not a great athlete, but I was a great supporter. And I quit playing baseball at 15 to become a coach because I loved. And now later in life, I'm like, God, that's why I started this, because I wish there was somebody who was like, hey man, like leadership is going to be like, you're going to want to like get into a position where you can coach people and like help them
Right.
win. And now consulting, like that's all I do all day. And it's so fulfilling. And you realize that you're like, oh yeah, like you have to be able to do all the jobs to be able to help coach them. But like, I don't need to be the best at any of them. I just need to help them kind of see where they're missing the
Yeah.
hole to crush it and do well. And yeah, I always joke about like sports analogies just live in our world. Like
Yep.
it's just what we do. And that's why the lessons from sports is so simple to me. It's like we take these lessons and they're just easily understood, right? Like, oh
Right.
yeah, take 100 free throws every day. You're going to get better at shooting free throws. Like, great.
Right.
Like building those repetitions in your days and those systems is what helps you succeed for sure.
Well, it's over the top too with growing up in New England for
Mhm.
all of us over what the last 20 years has looked like. And so it's that much more. I mean, I think it would have been that way again growing up in Boston, New England. It's just I mean, all the teams are so much of your life,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's impossible to escape it.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's bred in you there. I mean, obviously the top teams have shifted through the years. But when we were growing up, Red Sox baseball was just it was life.
Yeah,
I mean, it was everything all day, every day. It's all we talked about at school. I mean, it was everything. And to later, I remember the first time going to Fenway Park, working at WEEI. I remember they gave me the keys. They're like, this will open that door to the ball. I'm like, do I have the keys to Fenway Park right now? Like, what just happened? How did I get here?
yeah,
And I remember walking in. We were going to do a live broadcast from there, and it was, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch silent, just pin drop silent, and you're like,
yeah.
this is a childhood dream. And
Heck
I
yeah.
still to this day, like, there's something about a silent venue. Like, you probably feel the same way when you walk into your facility. There's something about the silence of it to be like, this thing's going to be alive in a little bit, and
Yeah.
that's
I just
pretty
gave you the
wild.
chills. You guys gave me the chills. Yeah, no, I could. Yeah, I'm related to everything you just said. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so now we go into the hot seat, Teddy. So one of the unfortunate realities of working in the world of sports is that some point you're going to be on the hot seat. It's just the way it works. Whether
Yeah.
you're a player or coach, you're sitting in the front office. If things don't go well, that seat gets pretty warm pretty
Hmm.
quick. So this
Yep.
is rapid fire questions. You just fire back answers and we'll just
Oh
keep
dear
going.
Lord. Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, number one, we both came from radio. Number one on your radio preset.
Now 98.5.
Okay, sports hub
Sports Hub.
guy.
Sports Hub. Yeah.
Nice, nice. They just made a change in the mornings over there.
Yeah,
It's
I dig it. I mean, I'm
okay.
definitely I'm liking it.
You're into it. I like
Yeah.
it. I like it. Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks?
It's I'm sorry. It doesn't feel right, but I have no idea how Dunkin' Donuts. You order the same coffee the same way, it never tastes the same. I just it's unbelievable to me. So I want to believe that I'm a Dunkies guy, and like my heart, but like I just it's Starbucks.
Yeah, it happened to me when I moved to Florida. It was the Dunkin' Donuts in Florida was very different from my one in Boston. I don't know for whatever reason, and I shifted to Starbucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, all right, we'll move on. Top team that you cheer for? What's your top sport?
It's Patriots. Celtics are giving them a run for the money right now.
Got it. Interesting. Basketball is making its way up the Teddy rankings.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Has it always been that way? Basketball always been in your?
It's always been high. I wouldn't say that basketball was ever a true number one, but the combination of just love Jason Tatum, but it's also the sport that both like my entire family is most into at this point.
Love it. Best single piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, jeez. I mean, that's hard, man. Best
It's not supposed to be easy.
piece. Yeah, I mean, the best single piece. I mean, it's really. You know what? I wouldn't say that. I'll answer that. I'm going to cheat a little bit,
Okay.
but I wouldn't say that I was much in the realm of having advice given to me. It was more about examples presented to me. So I think that it was like, I think at some point my dad, I doubt he said it, but he got me to understand to watch the example and to appreciate that and to kind of like, just when it came to work ethic and showing up and things like that. But I wouldn't say there's a crystal clear like piece of advice. It was really just understanding that the best advice is to watch by example.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk to a blue in the face, and it's one of the things we talk about is like I can offer all the advice in the world, but if I'm not there by like to help you actually implement it
Yeah,
and do the work, words are words, ideas. Everybody's like, I got 100 ideas. Great, let me see you execute one of them.
yeah, show up, showing up. I think that people, it's showing up is a massive piece of the puzzle, and a lot of people don't like that part.
No, and hide from it. Really, everybody.
Yeah.
I joke. This is one of the joke I make all the time is that it's really easy to write entrepreneur in your Instagram bio, but
Yeah.
it's a very different thing to make payroll.
Yeah.
Like to actually do it. Like we can all say we're that, but like it's like, oh, you're CEO. Okay, yeah. Like call Teddy. He'll talk to you about being a CEO. And everybody wants the reward without showing up. doing the
Yeah, I
work.
mean, and one of the things that one of the things that I have been experienced my excuse me, experiencing myself is going along with the being comfortable in uncomfortable positions, but it's to lean into your weaknesses was one thing I would want to say to people at this point is when you see something and you're at whatever level you're at and you're comfortable with whatever skill set you have, leaning into your blind spots or the things you don't have the same confidence in is is uh, is something that I've been playing around with a lot over the past couple months.
Self-awareness is something that is totally undervalued in today's workplace. Like being aware of your strengths and weaknesses and acknowledging them. And it's okay to have weaknesses. I think, when we're younger, you should explore them all. And by the time you're in your like early mid 30s, you kind of realize whether that's going to be a skill you're going to get good at or
Right.
not. And you have to make those decisions. But being okay to acknowledge it, I think too often people hide from it, and that ends up being a failure for them later,
Mhm.
where they're like, for me, I love this. Like, I'm not grammatically correct. Writing is just not my jam. Like, I can creatively write, I can do all those things. And when I got to the Padres, the first person I identified was an incredible writer. And I'm like, okay, we're going to be very close to each other because I'm going to have to write a lot of public facing information, but
Right.
I need someone to put eyes on that, and nothing
Right.
left my desk without her putting eyes on it. And like,
I
she
like
was
that.
like it was amazing. But
Yeah.
outsourcing that weakness at that certain point where you're like, but you shouldn't not try it. Like you
Nope.
need to, and because it may become a strength, you just don't know. At a certain point, but I love it. Okay. Next up, if you had to spend a day, you get the Teddy day, your favorite place in the world to spend that day.
Oh, um, the best Teddy day would, it would definitely be at a beach somewhere. Definitely with the family, and I'm not just saying that, but I am too. Um,
Because
but
your wife's gonna watch this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I want to be with friends, definitely with
Yep.
friends, definitely around people. And if I can really cap the night off the right way, it would be at a concert at the night. It's gotten to see the bands like my kids have gone and seen the Foo Fighters with Jill and I, and that sounds like I'll say that I'll say end the night at the Foo Fighters in Fenway.
So I kind of had a sense that you would go the concert route. So my next question ladders into that, which is like, you have traveled and seen, like, I see your, mostly through Jill, you don't post anything, but like,
Yeah,
I see like where you're at, whatever. And I know that's a priority for you. You guys have
yeah.
prioritized live music and going to see. What's the number one show you've seen at this point?
I tell people all the time, so it's got to be by genres, but like
Okay.
or by bands and stuff like that. But I would say what was a very special one was this past summer. We were in London for my mom's 70th birthday. So it was my family of four, my sister's family of five, and my mom. So 10 of us got to see Bruce Springsteen at Hyde Park in London. And it was
Wow.
completely coincidental. We did not go to London to see the boss, but the boss was literally a 10-minute walk from the hotel we had already planned at staying at. And, my family, my sister, my mom, and my dad and I had gone and seen Springsteen 3 or 4 times as a family. So that was, I could keep going, but
No, that's pretty special,
that's
dude.
pretty good.
I didn't even know you got to do that. That's amazing. And like, fun fact, I DJ'd Teddy's sister's wedding,
Cool.
and she had a full-on Bruce Springsteen tribute band like at her
Yeah.
wedding. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
major part of your family DNA.
Yeah, yeah, and when you hosted my dad's
You're right.
for the kickoff for his foundation, and that same band played that night. So yeah, Springsteen is definitely very important. So for my mom, she got to be there not just with her children and son-in-law and daughter-in-law, but also her 5 grandkids. So
That's pretty
that's
incredible.
that's
Yeah, it's
pretty.
generational. Like, that's awesome. I love
Yeah,
that. See, you surprised me with that one. I didn't even.
yeah,
That's awesome. I love it.
that's not
Okay.
bad.
That's amazing. All right. So now that's the end of the hot seat. You're off the hot seat, Teddy.
Whew.
Congrats. You made it.
Glad,
Made it.
glad.
So the last segment, the last sort of part of the podcast is all about providing value. You and I touched on, we both said at the beginning, we love kind of offering that advice. So just sort of, these are a little bit longer, but you know, somebody starting, let's go into a real specific one here.
Mm.
Somebody who has a family business and is
Okay.
that kid and trying to make that decision. I think we talked about at the beginning, the greatest, I say, not your words, my words, when I tell your story, is the greatest blessing that a successful family business can ever offer their child is the freedom to make a choice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I sum it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that freedom allowed you to roam and come back. You were so energized when you got into this business. Like, I remember the fire in your eyes. You're like, I'm going there to kick ass. Like, it's no doubt this versus I'm going to go do this because that's what
Yeah.
I do. So what advice, would you give that kid who is staring down what could be a barrel of a family business that's like scary to them? You said it was your biggest nightmare. Like, I mean, it probably was, right? Like, what
Yeah, a lot of
advice?
yeah.
And I would say two things. Sorry. What advice would you give that kid? And what advice would you give now you're the dad with kids looking at it?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say what I would give to that kid is, you said it right, is you need to go in there and be ready to not fight for survival, but you're showing up kind of like I joked about it, like you're showing up as Tommy Boy. You're not really
Fair.
taking that seriously out of the gate. So you need to be prepared to like you actually it to do it right, you need to be ready to work harder than you would if you were not just another employee, but like if you weren't in the family business. So to do it right, you actually need to really be prepared to work harder. Um, it's it's not easy. Um, it's going from generation to generation is um, it's got so much because it's not just taking over a business, it's taken on all the emotion, all the history of the business that comes along with it. It's not like you're not just dropping in and parachuted into some company as some new CEO from across the way and you have no other affinities to the people you work with. I mean, I have somebody in my phone who's I have Uncle Stevie is in my phone, and I've worked. Stevie's been at Katsiroubas Brothers for over 4 years. Like, that's not a normal CEO relationship with employees with somebody that I am not technically blood related, but he's. I mean, I consider him family, no doubt, and that's why my phone is Uncle Stevie. So that's just to go back to the original question is like you need to sign up to work. It's harder than just going into a corporate environment that has like a I don't want to say cookie cutter, but has like a path that's set out, you know. Um, and then what was the
But
second part of the question?
now you're the dad.
Yeah.
Like, what advice? Because I know you and I have had this conversation. Other family generational businesses have reached out to you to have these conversations. What do
Mhm.
you say to the other person at the table?
Yeah. So I would say that you have to have you have to have an experience where you are where you're working for someone else and it matters if you're going to get fired or not. And I don't know if that's
Yeah.
like you have to experience that. And I I think Maddie would cringe a little bit if I like if he were to ever for some reason decide to watch this. But it's one of the best lessons he taught me was that I almost made a real big mistake. One of my first weeks of working and producing the show, and he was not happy with me, and
Really?
he said, "If this thing doesn't work out, I don't know if you're coming back tomorrow, kid." And that was important because I didn't want to get fired. I wanted to show up the next day and I cared and I figured it out. But, if my dad had said it to me and I hadn't had that original experience, I'm like, I'm showing up tomorrow. Like, what are you really going to do? Like, I'm going to be here. Like, so I think you really need to have, like, you need to not just, if you're going to spend like people say spend 2 years working for someone else, like something like that. I wouldn't make it so it's just 2 years. So you check the box, like really do something. And if it's something, really do something you care about, and
Mhm.
really be committed to that job. Don't do it just to like hold the place to then go into the family business. Take it seriously. But you do need to have, I believe you need to have experiences outside of the family business.
Yeah, that's great advice because you're 100% right. When you know there's no consequences to your actions, like, I mean, we all faced it. I mean, we worked for a publicly traded company. I mean, it was stressful. I had no idea what that even meant when I got there. And next thing you know, quarterly, I remember the stress I would see on
Yeah,
all the senior leaders and be like, and like I'm asking for more money for a van or for a car or for people, and they're like, "Bro, we got to tighten belts," and we're like, "For
right,
what? We're fine. We're like the number
right.
one seafood in the city. What are you talking about?" Like, yeah,
Yeah,
let me show you this. Let me show you the P&L on this bad boy.
yeah.
So you learn that. Yeah, that's really good. I know you and I are similar that we don't live with like not a lot of regrets. But is there anything you kind of tiptoed around your leaving of Kiss? Is there anything in your career that you would change?
Um, yeah, I mean, that's definitely one that, in terms of I mean, at Cats, nothing
Mhm.
that's worth much thought. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that I could think of, but they're not ones that really, black bear phrase, like hold me back or like shuffle around. So no, man, I think not, yeah, no, I mean, I think it's things were out of my control, but like I would definitely like more time working with my dad, but those circumstances
Sure.
weren't in the cards. So, but outside of that, I mean, no, man, I
Yeah. No, it's an amazing feeling, right? Where you're like, no, I mean, and for me, some of those opportunities are lessons too, right? Like you not
yeah,
getting as much time to work with your dad allowed you to be I believe, as passionate as you were the day you got there. And
right,
I only got to spend a limited amount of time with your dad, but like the time that I did, I learned so much about what he did with you, about when
mm,
seeing giving you the freedom to go explore, I think is the greatest gift any parent could give their
yeah.
kid because you do come in with an appreciation for A, where you're going, but B, how you got there. And like, I just think that's really unique.
Yeah, I mean, there's going back to the sports adage. It's like you miss every shot you don't take. So like that's kind of how I definitely, I would say broad stroke. I would definitely err towards regretting not taking action on something or not going for something than I would ever regret going for something and it not working out. I'll take that. I'll take that all day, every day. So if I were to, you know, summarize something that I would look back, it would be if I didn't pursue an opportunity or if I didn't return a phone call, if I didn't go out and do something, but the things that I went for, and if they didn't work out, I got no regrets on those.
Yeah, love it. All right. I always finish on a positive note because I like that one before this question, but this question for me, I think is important for people to kind of wrap their head around. And it's what's the best part of your job?
It's the best. My favorite part of my job is from like from a personal standpoint is the people that I work with. That when you have stories of people who start out, at whatever point on the totem pole and they ascend, and this company provides for a lot of families, and that is um, that's definitely number one. I would say for like an actual what I do was learning how to actually do the buy-in when I took over that for my dad. That's definitely I like
You
that. That
you
gets
love
that
that.
gets that gets that
Every
gets
time we talk, you're talking to me about prices of turnips
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
I'm
No,
like,
I can't help it. It does. It gets the blood flowing. It does. It's definitely the thing that does excite me. It's it's my own version of it's a version of gambling. It's like
Yeah.
you're trading and you're going back and forth. So, but yeah, seeing the people and the stories, that's the best.
Yeah, and the people, it's a great answer because it's one of the things that I actually often talk about with radio. I think, the late great Tom Baker used to always tell me how
Yeah,
proud he was of how many marriages came from his when he was in San Diego, actually, randomly.
yeah,
And he used to always talk about that. But he was with us for a couple of years in Boston as our
yep,
general manager. But you and Jill are like Kristen and I think one of 12 marriages from my time at that
that's
cluster. And
crazy.
I think it's because, but I talk about it a lot, is because a lot of like-minded people like going in, and
Mm,
it's a very social environment. And, we were all there because we loved a type of music, or we were there because we love sports, and kind
mm,
of you start to find these connections that,
yeah, 100%.
friendships that have honestly lasted like a lifetime. And we have, text with you all the time. I mean, I have,
Yeah,
it's amazing those bonds and those friendships that came
yeah,
out of that time.
yep,
I love it.
absolutely.
Well, Teddy, you're the best. I tell you all the time how proud I am to be your friend and what you've accomplished, and your sister, obviously the family business, but what you didn't just take over a family business, you took over a family business and innovated that business to a whole new world, and starting Morrissey Market and seeing an opportunity. We didn't even get into that, which is
Mm,
crazy to me, which maybe I'll spend some time with Brad on that, but like
yeah,
seeing a hole in the market during COVID was a moment where everything can go down, and you guys saw that and turned it into a whole new opportunity, not
mm,
only for your business, but to start sprout another business out of a really tough time. So, love
yeah.
it. Thank you so much, my friend, and
Thank you.
thank you for everything.